Imagine stepping across a border, maybe just a few miles, and suddenly the rules of life for, well, for half the population are completely flipped upside down.
Yeah.
We're talking about women in ancient Greece, and it's a world that's often just, boiled down to one single idea.
Mm.
But if you lived in Athens, your life was pretty much defined by being indoors. But in Sparta, you were basically running the city and training like an athlete.
That intense contrast is exactly what we're getting into today.
Hmm.
Because the term ancient Greece, it kind of hides this huge range of lifestyles and rights.
Right.
So our mission is to figure out the why behind it. Why did Athenian society want their women to be, well, invisible? And why did Sparta demand and actually reward their freedom and their power?
Okay, let's start with Athens. It's the place everyone thinks of, right? Democracy, philosophy, art.
The big one.
But for Athenian women, life was, it was anything but public or free. It was all about the home.
Exactly. The key idea here is control of space. An Athenian woman's world was the house, and even more specifically, the gynoecion.
Gynoecion. Can you break that down?
Sure. You can basically translate it as the women's quarters. And it was culturally just vital. To be seen as modest, as respectable, they were kept in the parts of the house that were hardest to get to.
So like upstairs or in the back?
Yeah, often upstairs or in a separate area, tucked away so they would just never be seen by male visitors who were there to see the husband.
So it wasn't just a bedroom. It was more like a hidden headquarters for running the house.
A hidden headquarters is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Their daily routine was all about domestic management. They weren't just sitting around. They were managing staff, overseeing the food supplies, and raising the young kids.
Until the boys went off to school, I assume?
Exactly. And the city-state, and really the husband, they depended on the wife's efficient management. It was seen as, a pillar holding up the state's stability.
That's a ton of responsibility with basically zero public credit.
None.
And if their movement was so controlled, I'm guessing their legal status really locked that in.
It absolutely did. Legally, an Athenian woman was what we call a perpetual minor. She never really became a full legal adult.
So she was always under someone's authority.
Always. Marriage wasn't a choice. It was a contract arranged by her father and her husband to be.
And they married off so young, too.
So young, usually between 14 and 16. The goal was simple: produce heirs. And once married, she was still under the supervision of a male guardian, her kyrios.
Kyrios, what does that mean?
It literally means lord or master. And she needed his sign-off for any serious legal or, financial move.
Wait, so even as an older married woman, she still needed her husband or maybe even her own adult son to approve major decisions. How did that work with property? Could she own anything?
It made owning any significant property impossible. The whole system was built to keep wealth in the male family line. If she brought a dowry, which was common, her husband managed it completely.
So it wasn't really hers?
Not in a practical sense. The one protection she had was that if they divorced, the dowry didn't stay with him. It went back to her original kyrios, her father. It protected the family's money, but it kept her dependent.
That is the ultimate system of dependency. Okay, so what about education? What skills were they learning if their whole world was the house?
Well, their education was 100% practical, focused on running that house. It all happened at home, taught by their mothers.
And the main skills were what? Weaving?
Weaving was huge. Spinning wool, weaving cloth. It wasn't just, a hobby. High-quality textiles were a major status symbol for the family, a sign of a well-run home.
So it was a visible sign of her competence, even if she wasn't visible herself.
Exactly. Beyond that, she'd learn to manage food supplies, supervise cooking, maybe some basic reading and counting. But it wasn't a requirement. And here's the key thing: no physical education at all.
Because why would you need it to live indoors?
Right. It just wasn't seen as necessary for their lifestyle.
So were there any moments they could actually leave the house? Any sanctioned public appearances?
Very, very few. It was almost all centered on religion. Religious festivals, civic parades. That was pretty much it. That was the one space where women could get some public respect.
And they had some really important jobs in those festivals, didn't they?
Critical jobs. During the Panathenaic Festival, for instance, women wove the peplos, this incredible ceremonial robe for the statue of Athena.
Oh, wow.
They could also be priestesses in certain cults, which was a very powerful and respected position, and they led the mourning at funerals. But notice the pattern.
It's all ritual.
All rituals, not social, it's not commercial. If a respectable woman needed to just, say, go to the market, she had to have a man with her. Isolation was the price of respectability.
Okay, that paints a very clear picture of Athens. Now let's take that trip a few hundred miles over to Sparta, to a completely different universe.
The contrast is just, it's mind-bending. Spartan women had a level of freedom that would have been totally shocking to an Athenian.
They just walked around the city freely.
Freely. They were not confined. They were respected as powerful figures in their own right.
And the reason for this all comes back to Sparta's military obsession, right?
That's the key. Spartan society was a total military machine. The men were taken from home at age 7 to live in barracks. Their whole life was training and war.
So that left a huge power vacuum back home.
And the women filled it. They had to. They became the real heads of the household, managing these huge family estates.
So not just running a house, but running like a full-on agricultural business.
Absolutely. Managing the land, overseeing the slave population, the helots who worked it, controlling the finances. This forced them to be self-reliant and assertive. And, people from other parts of Greece were often scandalized by how they behaved.
That confidence had to come from somewhere. And it seems like it started with their physical training.
It did. The Spartan belief was simple. Strong mothers make strong children, and strong children mean strong warriors.
So the girls had a state-run education program.
A rigorous one, yeah. Almost identical to the boys. They ran, they wrestled, they threw the discus and the javelin.
And they did this in public.
In public. Which is just a radical departure from the Athenian ideal of being invisible. The whole goal was functional: build stamina, be fit for childbirth, and produce healthy kids. They even had their own athletic contests.
I heard their clothes were different too, more practical.
Very practical. Shorter tunics, often with the slit up the side for movement. It actually earned them the nickname thigh showers from other Greeks who were not impressed.
Huh. Okay, so this physical power, this had to translate into actual economic power too.
It did, and this is maybe the most stunning fact of all. Spartan women could inherit land and wealth, especially if there weren't any male heirs.
And this actually happened.
It happened a lot. By the 4th century BC, historians think Spartan women owned nearly 2/5. That's 40% of all the land in Sparta.
40%. That is a staggering amount of economic control.
It completely changes the power dynamic. It gave them financial independence. They were so much less dependent on their husbands than women in Athens. They had a voice because they controlled the resources the whole state ran on.
So with that kind of structure, what did marriage even look like?
It was still about producing warriors for the state, but the customs were totally different. Spartan women married way later, in their late teens or early 20s.
To make sure they were physically mature enough for childbirth.
Exactly. And the wedding ritual was unique. The bride would shave her hair and put on men's clothes. And even after they were married, the couple didn't live together for years. The husband stayed in the barracks.
So they were basically a military unit first and a family second.
The state came first, always.
Okay, so they had economic power, freedom of movement, physical training. What about their intellectual life? Were they educated enough to run these massive estates?
They absolutely were. Spartan girls got a formal state education. Many of them could read and write, which made them among the most educated women in the ancient world.
That makes perfect sense. You can't manage 40% of the country's land if you can't do basic accounting.
Precisely. And they were encouraged to talk about politics, philosophy, poetry. Their wit was famous. They were known for being laconic.
Laconic, that comes from Latonia, the region Sparta's in, right?
Yeah, saying a lot with very few words. They were sharp. And that education was essential for managing everything while the men were always away.
Which brings us to the one thing that truly connected these two wildly different cultures, the incredible importance of being a mother.
Motherhood was, without a doubt, the highest duty in both cities. But what they were creating was radically different.
So in Athens, a mother's success was about securing the family's future.
Right. Her job was to produce a legitimate male heir, to continue the family name, to carry on the religious rites. It was about purity of the bloodline.
But in Sparta, a mother was raising a future soldier.
A soldier for the state, exactly. Her success was measured by raising a tough, disciplined warrior who put Sparta above everything. The pressure was immense.
And that famous quote really sums it all up.
It really does. Spartan mothers would tell their sons leaving for battle to come back either with their shield or on it.
Meaning, come back victorious, carrying your shield.
Or come back dead, being carried on your shield. There was no third option, no retreat, no surrender. They were expected to be just as tough as their sons.
But in both places, whether you were a secluded Athenian or an assertive Spartan landowner, successfully raising those kids gave you a huge boost in status.
That's the crucial common ground. A woman's value skyrocketed once she had done her job and raised her children to adulthood. The whole system, whether it was through confinement or empowerment, relied on women to keep the state going.
So when we look back, the legacy of the Athenian woman is it's quiet, it's domestic, it's religious. It defined that ideal of the modest wife.
While the Spartan influence was direct, it was economic, it was political, their power and their education made them famous across the ancient world.
Hmm.
The contrast between the two just shows how varied Greek civilization really was.
The big takeaway here is that a woman's status in history isn't just one thing. It's shaped completely by what the state needs from her. Athens needed control and a clear family line.
And military Sparta needed competent, empowered managers to run the country while the men were gone. The needs of the state can define the freedom of its people.
It shows that so many of these historical rules are often based on just pure, practical logistics.
Exactly.
A fascinating thought. Good luck with your studies and keep exploring history.